My name is William. Step with me into Venice at night, where lantern light trembles on black water and a masked man slips from a gondola as if the city itself has invited him. You know the name Casanova as a joke, a wink, a shortcut for a man who never stops chasing. But the real Casanova lived in shadows as much as candlelight, and his romance was built on risk, secrecy, and a deep fear of being trapped. He was shaped by theatre before he was shaped by power. His mother performed on stage, and he grew up learning that a role can save you. Venice could be dazzling and strict in the same breath. There were opera houses, gaming tables, silk, and perfume, yet also priests, spies, and powerful families who guarded reputations like treasure. A careless promise could ruin a woman. A careless boast could send a man to prison. That tension was the air he breathed. Casanova learned that desire begins long before a touch. In salons and candlelit rooms, he watched how attention moves. A glance held half a beat too long. A compliment delivered softly, like a confidence. A question that makes someone feel interesting, not merely admired. He dressed with intent, not only in fine cloth, but in signals, a ring that looked inherited, a lace cuff that hinted at money, a neat collar that suggested discipline beneath pleasure. Even scent mattered: citrus, clean soap, a trace of warm amber and ink, like a letter just opened. He also learned patience, and that is the part most people miss. He wrote letters that felt like conversation, not conquest. He listened to complaints about a father, a dull fiancé, a marriage that felt like a locked door. Then he offered understanding first. A gift might be small and thoughtful, rather than lavish: a book of poetry, a ribbon, a simple mirror, a pair of gloves in fine leather. In a world where women were traded through alliances, being treated as mine could feel like a dangerous luxury, and that feeling can change everything. Yet the truth is even more astonishing. The man who wrote so freely about love also wrote about fear. He feared boredom. He feared debt. He feared being reduced to one story he could never escape. His romances were not only pursuits, they were exits. When a room became too small, he made a new identity and walked into another city like a fresh chapter. Venice taught him theatre on a grand scale. During Carnival, the city became a mask, and masks became permission. He moved through crowded squares where music spilled from windows, then slipped into narrow passages where only footsteps and water could be heard. Secrecy was not simply a thrill for many women, it was protection. A married woman could not be seen with a man who was not her husband. A young woman could not be known to meet a suitor without family approval. So Casanova mastered discretion. He learned which doors to use, which hours were safest, and which names never to say aloud. But his world was never only romance. It was power. He mixed with nobles and churchmen, and that was hazardous. When you dine with men who can erase you, intimacy becomes political. A private bond can open doors to money, patronage, and safety. It can also create enemies who will smile at you in public and destroy you in private. Casanova played at this edge, and sooner or later the edge cuts back. Accounts differ on what finally brought him down in Venice. Some point to scandal, others to enemies, others to the way he moved too freely between circles that distrusted one another. What is certain is that he was seized and taken to a prison beneath the lead roof of the ducal palace, a place known for heat, darkness, and the feeling of a lid closing on your life. The full story behind this might surprise you, because prison did not end his myth, it sharpened it. In confinement, he did what he always did. He observed. He studied guards, locks, routines, and weaknesses. He bargained where he could, flattered where it helped, and waited for the smallest opening. Then he escaped with nerve and timing, slipping into the night like a man stepping out of a story no one is allowed to finish. Suddenly, he was not only a lover, he was a symbol of escape itself, and that made him even more dangerous to the people who wanted him quiet. After that, his life became a moving stage. He wandered through great cities, carried by gambling winds, patrons, and the need to stay one step ahead of consequence. In one place, he was a polished gentleman in a coffee house, reading letters beside a porcelain cup. In another, he was a scholar in a library, trading wit with men who pretended to despise pleasure while chasing it in secret. He learned languages, changed manners, and tailored his story to the room. A new coat, a new name, a new smile, and the past became whatever he needed it to be. Here is where the romance turns darker. Casanova did not only pursue hearts, he pursued doors. He understood that certain relationships opened access to protection and influence. That can sound cold until you notice something else. He could be oddly tender with people society ignored. He might speak gently to a servant, carrying messages through danger. He might comfort a woman whose reputation was fragile, offering her dignity rather than ridicule. He could be generous with small kindnesses, the kind that felt intimate without making a scene. And yet he was still a man of contradictions. He could be vain. He could be reckless with money. He sometimes promised more than he could deliver, then vanished when the bill arrived. He could make someone feel chosen, then leave them alone with consequences. That is why the legend is complicated. He was not a saint and not a monster. He was a skilled reader of human longing, and he used that skill to survive. In his memoirs, he does not present romance as a simple chase. He describes it as a negotiation of freedom. For him, love was thrilling because it was temporary, and terrifying because it might become permanent. When he met a woman who truly understood him, the stakes rose. He would hesitate. He would test her patience. He would invent reasons to delay, not because he lacked desire, but because he feared losing his mobility, his identity, his ability to reinvent himself on the next road. Imagine him in a candlelit room, walls hung with tapestries, a bowl of fruit on a table, the scent of wax and wine in the air. A woman laughs softly at something he says, and for a moment he looks almost calm. Then his eyes flick toward the window, as if he hears the future approaching. That tension is the real Casanova. Romance as comfort, romance as escape. So what made him unforgettable? Not simply the number of affairs, but the way he turned intimacy into a story people wanted to enter. He offered mystery without cruelty, confidence without shouting, and the feeling that he could see what others ignored. He understood that the strongest seduction is not physical. It is psychological. Make someone feel understood, and they will remember you long after the music stops. Yet the truth is even more astonishing. Even he could not seduce time. The carnival ends, the candles burn down, the rooms go quiet. In the final stretch of his life, the wandering slowed. He found himself surrounded by books and memories, writing his past as if words could hold what time steals. Behind the famous name was a simple human fear, that he might be forgotten once the masks come off. If you take one lesson from Casanova, let it be this. Desire is powerful, but secrecy gives it shape, and story gives it meaning. When we reduce him to a stereotype, we lose the human drama that made him fascinating. Charming, anxious, strategic, and often lonely, he was proof that romance can be both a light and a shadow. If this story intrigued you, Give the video a like and tell me in the comments whether you see Casanova as a romantic artist or a skilled illusionist. And if you want more hidden love stories from the past, subscribe and join me again. The past is never as innocent as it looks, and it is often in the shadows that we learn the most about the heart.